Hi everyone, Raphael Harry here, and you're listening to White Label American, a podcast where we hear stories from an immigrant or two, sometimes more. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. Welcome to another episode of White Label American. Thank you all for joining us today. Before we begin, I would love to acknowledge and give a special shout out to each and every one of my sustaining contributors. Thank you for being patrons, making this podcast possible, and helping to build a community. For our first time listeners, with regulars who at this moment may not be able to sign up on Patreon, we understand you can still support this podcast via subscribing, sharing, giving 5 stars, and a positive review wherever you listen to podcasts on and platforms. Don't forget that you can also get our t-shirts in whatever color that you prefer in the show notes, or go to vetclothing.com. Vetclothing, VET, clothing.com. All right, so let's go straight up to our guest. Today's guest is this episode could be tagged white label Canadian, because we're going across the border into our northern neighbors, and this is the first time we'll have a solo guest from our neighbors up north. So today's guest is also a podcaster. She's also a sociologist. She's a blogger, a social activist, a natural hair grooming. She also has a natural hair grooming blog. She's quadrilingual, and she's an all. She comes in so many forms of awesomeness because she's multi-talented and has the black woman magic going for her, and she's just so many things that I won't be. We will spend hours if I just start breaking it down. So without much further ado, I welcome Annick. How you say your last name? I had it and it disappeared. How do you say your last name again?
It's Bassainthe. Bassainthe. It's very Frenchy. Hi, Joshua. How
Bassainthe.
are you?
I'm Raphael. I'm using the studio's Zoom, so it's still Raphael. But you're seeing Josh on the screen, so it's okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
wait, you're Raphael. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so Annick Bassainthe is our guest, and welcome to the podcast. How you doing today?
I'm great, Raphael. How are you doing?
I'm doing
Thanks for
good.
inviting me.
I have some allergies, so bear with me. All right. So you already alluded to your name being French, and both your first and your last names, are they both French?
Yeah, well, they do have a pretty French sound to pronounce it, a pretty French pronunciation. I'm from Haiti, so we also speak French and Creole. And now I'm living in Montreal in Canada, so the French part of Canada in Quebec.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I
yeah.
was going to get to all that, but I was just focusing on the name for now. So, just so did I say your first name correctly?
Yeah, that's correct. Annick.
Annick. Okay.
Yeah.
So, is there a meaning to your first name and last name?
I would have no idea.
Okay, so you haven't
Well,
looked
the
it up.
translation of my last name in English would be 2 cents.
2 cents.
Yeah, like a cent.
Oh.
Like
Oh.
Joseph. Like I don't know. That's what would be the translation of it.
But Joseph has a meaning. I used to have a book of names, so I know a whole bunch of meaning of names. Like I know my name has, I know the meaning of my Raphael is a Hebrew name, which is
Mhm.
like a healing of God. If you're going by Raphael on the Hebrew side, Harry, my last name is Celtic, and is the same as Henry on the English side, which is a rich, powerful lord. Or it might be different if you go by the to if you break it from English to Celtic. But
Mhm.
yeah, but if you go by the English word of Harry is also a word like I think an adjective or yeah, something like that, which led to one of my cousins being kicked out of the family. Well, I don't know if he was kicked out, but he found Jesus, like found Jesus from the family, which is already conservative, and he went and found Jesus on his own, like at the extreme level that even the most evangelical person in my family was like, okay, you're too extreme. And he said we need to change our name from Harry because going by the English word of Harry, Harry means a fool.
Mm.
So he was like, no, that's not the name this family should be going by. Like, that's not the name. The name Harry doesn't mean a fool. Means a rich, powerful lord. But that became an issue. So he changed his name to, I think what he changed his name to? Israel or Praise or something else like that. Why nobody ever changing their name to the traditional name? That's another topic. But yeah. All right. So you already mentioned that you were born in Haiti, which is, you gave that spoiler out early. So um, where in Haiti were you born? And so when I say where in Haiti, is like cities, states. Does Haiti do states or regions?
Yeah, we do have provinces
Okay,
and
provinces.
cities. So I was born in the capital, so Port-au-Prince.
Yep.
That's the capital of Haiti. So that's where I was born. And my parents are actually from two different regions, from the north and the south. But they migrated to the capital, like most of the people at the time, to find jobs and university to go to university.
Okay. So is there like one main university only in the capital, or are there other universities in other parts of Haiti?
That is a very good question. I'm pretty sure the main ones are in the capital.
Okay.
Only universities, but schooling, there are other ones everywhere. As of school and high school and stuff like that, it's more universities in the capital. But there is one for environmental studies. It's a little
Fascinating.
bit outside of the like the main city, a little bit outside because it's environmental studies, so you
Hmm.
need a little bit more space.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. So that's something a little bit similar to Nigeria. Um, the only difference is that people do not go to the capital for university. I think the university is capital, although it probably has access to more funding because the majority of universities are funded by the federal or state governments.
Yeah, but that
The
was at the time of my parents more. Like
Now
now
I'm
people go
talking of
to
now in Nigeria. It's
okay,
majority
okay.
funded by
Yeah, for me it was at the
there are
time of my
lots of
parents.
universities in Nigeria, but the more popular universities are not in nobody goes to the federal capital
Mhm.
for because Nigeria is supposed to be a federal system, so we call the capital federal capital. Um, nobody says I'm going to the federal capital to attend university. It's probably no. I've never heard anybody saying that. It's like you don't have a you don't have an option. You couldn't get into the other universities, and that was like your last resort. And you go to that capital, the university in the capital. I don't even know where that university is in the capital. I don't think I even know anyone who's attended that university. It's never been on our agenda. We don't even think about it, but other universities are around the country, the most popular ones, the biggest universities, yeah, they're scattered around the country. Every state has its own university too. So, and then there are a couple of private universities that keep popping up every year. A few churches own their own universities, and some Islamic bodies also own their own universities, which have their own separate rules going on. So, yeah, but the biggest universities are federal owned, and we also have like some. So like we have one in the eastern region, which is Federal University of Technologies and Agriculture. So it's supposed to mimic something like the one you're talking about, the environmental. So it's something along that line, but they added technology to the name. And then you have some that are University of Fisheries and Agriculture and University of Maritime Studies. So University of Maritime Studies is in a coastal city. And so there's stuff like that, which you by the name, you see where the university is located at. And it makes sense. It's supposed to make sense, but only that the funding is just a little bit dry. So that's what I meant by it's similar to what Haiti has
Mhm.
in locating the university outside of the big city. Yeah,
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah. So I already know from spying a little bit into your story when you appeared on Aaron's podcast that you left Haiti early, but still, where would you consider your favorite childhood memory from?
Um, that is a very good question. I would say, well, from Haiti, my favorite childhood memories would be like going to carnival with my family, and we used to go to the south of the country for carnival. That's where mostly at the time best carnivals were happening. And my mom is from there, so we usually go for like a week just for carnival. It's very important for us, like carnival time.
Mm.
It's a good moment to blend as a community. Everybody is really blended, and you can enjoy at the same time. Everybody's happy mood, and it's also a great way to put forward our culture and for artists to also be creatives and share their passion in innovation. So it's always a good time, and then we stay with families and friends and everybody's just happy. So I think that's one of my best memories because I used to go with all my cousins, brothers, and we go to our grandmother's house. So it's like going to camp type of thing. So it's like the same vibe that you have to go to camp in other countries, and then that was for us just to go to carnival.
It's fascinating. I've never heard of a carnival described in the way you just described it, and
Yeah.
it's beautiful. As in, um, for good time for community, and so you guys took the whole week off and just went for a carnival.
Yeah, usually, if I remember correctly, like carnival, it's like 3, 4 days.
Hmm.
But in the
Okay,
south,
yeah,
there was
that's like a
also
week too. Yeah.
yeah, there's also like a carnival 1 week before. So there's like the national
Oh,
one,
okay.
and then there is also the carnival of the city before 1 week before. So like if you can like just go for 1 week,
Mm.
it's just best. So you have both carnivals. So often you will have people going 1 week before, and then other ones would come just for the national one. So it just depends how you manage your time and everything. Yeah, but it's good to see both.
Oh, nice. See, that's another thing that I got to discover later in my life that literally almost every Caribbean country has a carnival or has some history to its
Yeah.
carnival. Because I think the first time I ever heard of carnival or saw carnival on TV was just Brazilians, and
Yeah,
it
Brazil.
just seemed to be only Brazil, and I was like, oh, carnival Brazil. That's all I associated in my brain, and of course, it wasn't like there were even dark skinned Brazilians on the parade. It was so I was like, carnival is not something that black people do. And when there was talk of bringing carnivals to different parts of Nigeria, and I'm like, why are you bringing this stuff? What are we going to do with carnival? Not like I was in a position to say no, but it didn't make sense to me because I'm like, oh, what I black people don't do carnival, So if I was in a group of
Really?
with people who were talking about carnival, like, yeah, we don't need this or why are we doing this, it was because all the pictures I had seen at one point in time were of mostly light skinned people or white in passing people celebrating doing carnivals, and I was like, yeah, it's not us. But
Oh, wow, that's a very different perspective. Well,
yeah,
even
but
in
if I had seen
Brazil.
people from Haiti doing it, Jamaicans, it'll be later on. When later I will see Jamaicans, but so that interpretation will even occur to me that people look like me were doing carnivals. They've been doing it for years, for as long as possible, and it never occurred that it's something that we even had carnivals in our part of the world, but the messaging had changed it to something else, and I was like, oh, okay. Well, yeah, it's not something that we should be ashamed of or we should deny. You know, it's something that should have been embraced because we have a big carnival in Calabar, which is like if anyone wants to go to Nigeria, that's where I would recommend you go during December. It's the whole month. They just party for a whole month. That's it. Yeah. That's why people go there and say they don't want to come back. I'm like, yeah, you won't come back if you go party for a whole month. You know.
Yeah, that's very true. Like in Brazil, it's very popular in Brazil. It's like internationally speaking, I guess it would be one of the most international one. But in the Caribbean as well, it's very international for the English Caribbean. And then you also have Caribbean in Haiti and other countries in the Caribbean, like more on the French side. But it would be very hype in the English, like Jamaica, Barbados. That's very high. But in Brazil, there are a lot of Afro Latinos too
Oh yeah.
right now. I guess now it's getting much and more blended with the Afro Latinos. Maybe before, like a few years ago, it was more like light skinned people, but
I think they've always
it's not
been
the
there.
case.
They've always been there, but it
Yeah,
was the focus was never on
probably.
them,
Yeah.
and it just made it easier for the messaging to even like because like in Nigeria, I don't know if in Haiti if the telenovas and
Hmm.
the soap operas from the Hispanic TVs are huge there, but for us in Nigeria, huge.
Hmm.
And so we've been introduced to Hispanic America for a long time, but I always see is just one picture also. So it's kind of the same thing, but you're not seeing that there are people that are dark skinned
Yeah, yeah,
Hispanics
yeah.
in those movies, in those shows.
Especially in telenovelas. Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
so like I think I can't remember what that show was called, but I had a previous guest who has been on one of the most popular telenovas, and we were talking about it on the podcast, and I mentioned how first time I saw a black person on a telenova. For I don't even know how we came to that conclusion, but we just assumed he was an American who got lost and found himself in Mexico. That was well, we were kids also, but I don't know how or when somebody just came up with that because his hair was dyed, he barely spoke, so it was this some black guy they just found him, casted him, just trimmed there, and we all went with it and just yeah, because to us, how could someone that dark be Mexican? It didn't make sense to us. Like you can't be Mexican. Although in football, soccer that we all watched, there were dark skinned Brazilians. We saw the Afro Brazilians. We saw the Afro Bolivians. We saw the Afro Ecuadorians. We saw the Afros in other countries. But it's like, yeah, but when we watch the Brazilian soap operas, there's no dark skin, there's no Afro person. It's all white in passing, and it's like, oh wait, why? And so so then when you see carnivals, why would you be expecting to see the dark skinned person dancing in front? You're not going to be expecting to see your because your programming is already being pushed to one side. You're already expecting to see one type of Brazilian. Then when it gets to football, then you expect to see the dark skinned guy show up there, and then but you don't question it. And then when it starts to hit you, then you're like, oh, wait a minute. They've always existed. I've been seeing them too, but I just never saw them here. And that's when it occurs to you that, yeah, there was something pushing them aside. Even in Europe too, the same thing. Yeah. But yeah, it's part of the learning process that we're on right now. So you left Haiti when you were you're quite early, quite young, and you moved your whole family moved to Canada, right?
Correct.
And you found yourself so what city did you move to?
I moved to Montreal.
Okay, so and since then you've always been in Montreal.
Yeah.
Okay. So you arrived in Canada, new country, bigger country than Haiti, both in land mass and totally different weather to Haiti and everything. What was that like for you, that beginning phase?
It was a very cultural shock, especially that I would be part of the immigrants who came with a heavy background because we left the country because of political issues and a lot of things happened before we came. It's not like we decided to come here on our own.
Mm-hmm.
We were kind of pushed out of the country, so we were not prepared for that, and so it was very complicated. I guess it would be complicated for everyone, but especially for me since I was the youngest. So it's like you don't really understand what's happening.
Yeah.
So it's a very much of a cultural shock and also like just an emotional shock as well. It's like in the beginning, you're like, yeah, you're changing a new country. And then after you go to school and then everybody's like, oh, I don't understand what you're saying. What's that accent? You don't feel like you connect to the people in there. And it's so funny that I still don't connect to so many people right now. Even after like few years, almost 15 years, I believe, if I
Mm-hmm.
count well. So it was very difficult on my perspective was very difficult, and I did know some people that was in the same school as me. So I got into school in the middle of the year, so it's like it's already difficult situation for every kid to just go in a new school in the middle
Yeah, in the middle.
of the
Wow.
year.
Yeah,
So
that's tough. Yeah.
for me, it was like double tough in the sense that you're changing country, you're changing everything, and just in the middle of the year. So I was really sad to leave my friends, and so yeah, it was just the whole change, emotional shock that happens to mainly every kid, but here it was like double. So I didn't speak to a lot of people for a year. I was not like the really talkative person, and I am normally a social person, and I like speaking, I like talking to people, but with the accent being, it's like I spoke French, so thank God I spoke French. It's
Yeah,
even
I was
harder.
just about to ask that
Yeah,
question.
so
Yeah.
it's even harder for other people who don't speak the language. So thank God I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have to learn the language and stuff. But it was for me, it was more in the accent side. Because in Haiti we do have a Haitian accent. We speak French and Creole, but
Yeah.
like you can mix Creole from French because they're so similar to it. You can mix French to Creole. It's like at the end of the day, when you speak both of the languages,
Mm-hmm.
you just ended up mixing them all. Like if I speak to my Haitian friends, like you will just listen to few Creole words just popping up in our conversation. So if you speak French, you will be like, "What? What did you just say here?" So it was an adaptation for me there in just the accent and language part, not to learn it, but just to understand. And also, like in Quebec, they do have an accent themselves, and they use other expressions like different from France. And so that was difficult. And I went to a high school from France. Like it's like a French system from France in Quebec, in Montreal. So
Okay, so
so it's like
the high
outside of the
school
school. Yeah.
system, that high school was, so the Canadian system is different from the French system.
Yes, the Canadian system is a little bit, no, they have differences. Yeah, it is different from the French system, but
Okay.
I went to the French system in Montreal. So it's like I didn't go directly to the Canadian system.
Yeah.
So it's like outside of the school, I had to adapt to the French Canadian culture. And then in the school, I was adapting to the French from France culture. So it's like
Okay.
I was doing two integration at the same
Wow. So
time.
yeah, multiple
And
integrations.
yeah, so it's like
Wow.
the kid in the school, they would have more of a French from France accent. So it's like learning the new expressions. The teachers
Mm-hmm.
would speak from France as well. So I was not exposed to Quebecer culture right away. It's like I got exposed to it after, like when I started working, like more in the workforce. So it's like almost 10 years after. So it's a Canada itself already has a really complicated identity. So like coming as an immigrant and being on the French side, it's like you do have multiple identity
Wow.
crisis in there because it's already complicated on its own.
Wow. It does sound heavily complicated. So now let me put on my ignorant American hat. Let me put it that way. So Montreal is part of Quebec, right?
Yeah, so it's like you have Canada and you have provinces. So like
Okay.
Quebec is a province. It's also the name of the city, the main city of the
Uh,
province.
okay. So yeah, I think
So
it's. Oh, I've always been thinking about Quebec, the city,
okay,
without
they're
realizing that
both.
Quebec
Yeah,
is the province. So
yeah.
Quebec, the province, is that where you have? Is that the should I call it the nationalist movement that wants to be independent from Canada.
Yes, that's correct. That's
So that's
exactly correct. Yeah.
it's the region they're trying to get out of.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Toronto would be part of Ontario, so that's English. And let's say Vancouver is part of British Columbia, that's a province. So the rest of Canada is English, but Quebec is
It's French
French.
and
And Montreal is a bit more multicultural. And
uh-huh.
then downtown Montreal, you have both. You also have Anglophones in Montreal and you have Francophones, and you can meet people who just speak English and maybe understand a little bit of French, or maybe don't understand anything of French. And you can meet also the opposite, like people that are just Francophones and don't understand English. But like obviously depends on the youth, like the age. Young people like are getting more and more bilingual, so there's a generational differences as well.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying it's already complicated on its own. So coming as an immigrant to that, and you're like, where do I fit? I speak French, but like I don't connect to all the francophone values. And like, where do I go? Like I'm not English, like
Uh-huh.
so
Like
it's like it's kind of difficult. So I felt it as soon as I came there, because you were going to school and you were hearing one accent, one expressions, and you were learning to adapt to that. And then once you go out, so let's say I go to a store, or and then I hear a Quebecer accent, and I'm like, okay, what did you just say? It's like I don't hear that every day, even though I
hmm.
live in the city. So that was kind of the culture. And then at home you have another accent at home. Then my parents, they're very Haitian.
Yeah.
They kept their accent, so it's like you had to get three identities in one city. Yeah, like
Okay.
one identity at home.
Now I think I'm getting it now.
Yeah.
I'm getting it now because uh we have a different I'll say we have a different variation of that over here. And not all of us like to admit it, but did you ever see this movie, Sorry to Bother You?
No.
I recommend you watch that movie. It's I think it's on Hulu now.
I'll check it
Yeah,
out.
Sorry to Bother You. What's his name again? It's a fantastic actor. He's also in Judas and the Last Messiah, I think it's called. That's getting rave reviews right now. Lakeisha Stanfield. Yeah, I think Lakeisha Stanfield is his name. He was fantastic in that movie. So
Mhm.
that movie shows it's not an immigrant, but the character he plays, but it's kind of showing the black American, a black I'll say a black person walking in a white space,
Mhm.
and how we navigate, how we become fluid to be able to walk in
Yeah.
the night in a
You like the water. Yeah.
yeah. So because when he comes into that space, he's working in a sales position, and where he, at first he tries to, they say be yourself, yeah, but you can't really be yourself if you want to
No, you can't.
perform in certain, if you want to exist and survive in certain positions. And what's his name? Something Glover. I've forgotten his first name. Why I forget his first name? It's an older actor.
Mhm.
Now, well, his last name is Glover, and he's sitting next to him, and he's like, "You got to put on your white man voice." And he's like, "What?" It's like, "You got to put on your white man voice." And so they use different actors, so they like use real white actors to switch
Mhm.
when the black person switch. So you're code switching. That's what it's called, code switching.
Yeah,
So
code switching. Yeah.
there's a lot of code switching that you just said without saying it, and we do that a lot because there are times when even on this podcast I code switch, and
Mhm.
even when I'm on other friends, like I was on a friend's podcast. They're Nigerian. They were Nigerians. There were South Africans and Kenyans on for the recording. They're all podcasters, but I was the guest, and but the interaction was different because it was like I'm with my people, so I
Mhm.
know how to communicate with them. But if I was communicating with like on this podcast, I know I'm communicating mostly people in the Western audience.
Mhm.
I can't really flow the way I flow when so the tonation changes, the way I speak changes, and some people say
Exactly.
you're
Yeah.
speaking
Yeah.
white. I'm not speaking white. It's part of the evolution, it's part of the code switch. I'm surviving. And
Yeah, you're
yeah.
just adapting. It's survival. Like for example, I've spoke to so many friends that are Quebecers.
Mm-hmm.
I would say white Quebecers because, like, just to be specific, they themselves do as well a little coding switch because if they're from the region, their accent is much more stronger.
Yeah.
So once they come to the city and at work, they need to like speak slowly, and then sometimes the words they use is very close to old French, like very close to old French, and like we don't use these words anymore and then they're like use it.
Wow.
So one
That's like
time they
speaking
say, oh,
Latin.
yeah, it's like, well, it's not that far, but it's like, why did you use this word? It's like, I thought the dictionary just lost that one, like why? So, and it was so funny that by just speaking to them, I figured as well we have a lot of words in common in Creole
Mm-hmm.
because Creole is mixed with Old French. So
Oh, okay.
so there are a lot of like mosquitoes, for example, the way they say it in French, we say like maringouin in Creole, and
Wow.
they say it like that too. For me, that word was Creole, but I ended up realizing that it's also a French word, but it's from Old French. So
Oh, fascinating.
but like there are some similarities like that. But the thing is, my problem with the code switching is that it's the percentage that you do it for.
Yeah.
So they would do it like a 10% switching, for example. Like everybody needs to do switching. You need to adapt to your audience. Like I'm not against this idea. I'm also in marketing, so I do that professionally. Like I also suggest other people to do it for their business. Like it just makes sense to just adapt to your audience. If you want to, if you're speaking to kids, you won't be speaking with that rough way, like accent, like very tough and stuff. Like you're just going to be a little bit smoother with kids. And
Mm-hmm.
like it, this is part of conversation and also part of the communicating with others. It just makes sense. But in our case, it's like you need to switch to at least 70%. You're almost losing your identity. You're almost losing
Yeah.
yourself. So that's why in my case it was like, for example, I have to switch 3 times, and that could happen in one day. Let's say I go to school and I do 8 hours there, and then I go out, I go to the store. It's like another code switching, and then I go home,
Mm-hmm.
it's another code switching. So do you know like how much energy I just wasted here? It's like
Exactly.
that's a lot. Like they need to do a switching, for example, just from work to home. That's it. But like you don't have to do work, school, home, and then friends. And then in my case, it was also friends,
Mm-hmm.
even in
Yeah.
groups of friends. So like the people you're choosing. So it's like that's where I would have a problem. So now now I'm a bit older. I was also young, so
Yeah.
as a young person, you're already having an identity crisis already. So you're adding that. So it's like it's just getting bigger and bigger. So you also can have multiple identity crises as well instead of having like just one big one as every normal young people. But right now I just decided to do my code switching like to lower the percentage. Like I
Mm-hmm.
would do it at least maximum to 10%. And the other thing, it goes to both sides. For example, when I started switching my accent just naturally, because environmentally speaking, you would be switching accent because that's just what you hear every day. So it would just come to you naturally at a certain point after a few years, you know?
Yeah.
So my Haitian friends now were like, "Oh, you're not Haitian anymore." So it happens in both sense, like both places. I would say it's in both part of your life. So when I go to the Haitian part, they're like, "Oh, you don't have our accent anymore." So like you're a Quebecer. When I go to the Quebecers, they're like, "Oh, you're not Quebecer, you're Haitian." So it's like it's tough, and people just want to decide for you who you
Who you
are.
are? That's right.
So by being an adult now and like young adult, I learned how to really assume who I was. Like it's still a learning process because there's also all those years that you have been doing that code switching for all these years. Like you kind of don't know anymore. It's like you need to search again of who you really are because you lost it for like at least more than 15 years. So it's pretty tough. It's more in that sense. So like I would just like lower the percentage. Like it was just too much, the 70% of my time doing a code switching.
Indeed, it's too much. But before we continue, we shall take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Hi everyone, your host Raphael Harry here. I can't believe we have gone past our 1 year anniversary of doing White Label American. I've had the privilege of speaking with some amazing people, sharing their modern day immigrant stories. And you've allowed this Nigerian immigrant to share parts of his immigrant journey through this podcast. Also, one of my goals of this podcast is breaking down artificial walls that keep people from getting to understand each other. Based on your wonderful feedback over the last year, I think we have done a decent job in breaking down some of those walls. We would like to continue and expand on this mission, but we need your help. I've had an amazing time creating and producing episodes for this show largely on my own. We have a lot of ideas for new and exciting content to expand upon the mission, but we need direct support from you, our listener, which is why we have created a White Label American Patreon page where you can make a one-time donation or become a sustaining contributor where you can get access to exclusive content, help me interview upcoming guests by submitting questions, and even have the chance to sit down with me for a one-on-one conversation, either virtually or in studio. So if this podcast means something to you, and if you really love this show, think about becoming a sustaining contributor and donating by going to patreon.com/whitelabelamericanpod. Thanks for listening and for the privilege of your company. Okay, so welcome back. And yes, so very important point that you raised about the code switching. Spending 70% is a lot. And I think, well, not just think, I believe that it's important that we have such conversations because of the next generation, the younger generation, because they will also go through similar identity crisis, if I may call it that way. And those of us who have identified this and have been through this, it's up to us to be there for them and say, hey, look, you don't have to spend 70%. You don't have to. You don't even have to go that. You don't have to wait until you're a young adult to,
Yeah.
do the white labeling, which is what
Yeah.
we are doing now. We are doing the white labeling. You're doing the white labeling Canadian. I'm doing white labeling American, and showing that you can do the code switching for only 10% and you're still Canadian. You can do the code switching for 10% and still be American. You don't have to toe that line of code switching 24/7, because there are times when I'm speaking, people are like, wow, you're Nigerian. I'm like, yeah, because there are some Nigerians who meet me, they're like, what, you still have the Nigerian accent like you just left Nigeria yesterday. I said, never left. Yeah, you're the one who just assumed that because I can address a room full of 1,000 people and sound like, I can sound as corporate as they come, and I can also sound as who I want to sound like, but it's up to me, and I can white label it if I want to. That's just me. And I talked to my daughter with it's our variation of Creole. I've seen a book of languages, also a map of languages in Nigeria, and they identified one part of Nigeria as having Creole separately. So I didn't understand but we didn't have a sociologist teacher then, because it was a public school. They were on strikes and those all crazy. But nobody could ever explain what that language was in that part of the country. I've never met anybody from there, so I don't know. But what qualifies as Creole on average around Nigeria is Pidgin English. So I can say, how you did, what did it happen?
Yeah, exactly. So
that
Creole
kind
is
of
just
stuff.
like a mixed. Creole means a mix of different languages.
Yeah, so it's broken
Creole
English for us.
Yeah.
So for you guys, it's broken French. I'm assuming, or just mixed of other languages.
We kind of involved with that mentality. We stop colonizing the language itself. We're trying to. There are a lot of social issues with the language as well, but I think a lot of us now recognize it as a language, especially it's also recognized right now as like the popular Creole too on the francophone side, I would say.
Mm.
Any Creole that is mixed with French, for example, on Google, if you want to translate, you would find Haitian Creole, but there are so many other Creoles
Oh yeah.
close to French that are not there. For example, like they're from Guadeloupe, Martinique, like all the other Antilles, like French Caribbeans. There's also the Réunion Island. They speak Creole. It's not the same as us.
What island?
Réunion
Oh,
Island.
Réunion. Yes, yes. That's one of those
So
islands on
they also speak
African
Creole.
islands. So
Yeah,
if you hear
it's
Réunion
not the
Island
same.
Creole, do you understand it or does it take you longer?
No, no,
None.
I don't understand it at all. It's completely different. The one from Martinique and Guadeloupe, I would understand the concept, the
Okay.
context that they're speaking, but there's some words that like I wouldn't know what it was. I can guess what they mean and then it might be good. I have more chances that it's good than bad, but I feel like the opposite often works. It's like they might understand our Creole much more than us understanding theirs, just
Mm.
because we're also many of us immigrated. So and also like for example, if you go to France, you're always gonna have like Auntie people, like Caribbean people together with Haitians. So then we're learning each other's language. In Montreal,
Yeah.
we're also a lot of the Haitian community is very big in Montreal. So you're gonna always find like someone that gonna tell you, I know Creole words, and then it's always gonna be Haitian just because of that.
Okay.
Um, but we speak Haitian Creole specifically, and we recognize it as a language because there are also people in Haiti who only speak Creole
Yeah.
and they don't speak French. So it's a language on its own because even for me, if I go and speak with someone that just speak Creole, I might not understand at a certain point what they're saying because it's fully Creole. As of me, I speak a mix of
Mm-hmm.
Creole and French. So I would be the pigeon. The person that
Okay.
speaks the pigeon of Creole would be me.
Okay.
but
I
because we mix it up, but there are people they only speak Creole and some of them might not understand French or because if they're really outside of the city, they don't
mm-hmm.
need it in their work.
Yeah.
So they just speak Creole, yeah.
Okay. That's beautiful. Because like in Nigeria, I'm using Nigerian example. So like in Nigeria, um Western Creole is Western part of Nigeria's Creole is different from my part of Nigeria, the southern
Okay.
part.
Okay.
And in the southern part, the one that has like the highest rating is or ranking is
Yeah.
the Wafi region, the Wafi side, the Wafi city, which is Warri area, because
Mhm.
that's the one that's like when if you can speak it real good, people gonna be like, oh, this is sweet, man. They're gonna clap for you.
This is
But it's also the one that they from speaking it sweet, they can use it if they threaten you with that. You're like, okay, yeah, take just take whatever, man. I'm not even gonna fight you. And like
Yeah,
when I used to
you
speak it fluently, I could challenge someone who looked like 5 times my size, and they won't even dare to fight me because they
you're
will
gonna be
assume I'm
respected.
from there. They're like, yeah, this guy brings trouble. They just give him what he wants, walk away. And then when I was in during my basic training, I met a gentleman from Sierra Leone, and so like the English speaking West Africans, I can understand all their Creole
Mhm.
because the English part in there makes it easier for me. I just have to pay attention to what you're
You
saying.
pick up the
Yeah,
English words.
I can pick up. So with that, I can get the context, and then I take it off from there. And some say
Mhm.
ours is too fast. So like, but the Cameroonians also the English part of Cameroon, because Cameroon is
Mhm.
two countries in one.
Mhm.
I also understand theirs. I've not heard the French part, but the English part I understand it. But if you go to the northern part of Nigeria, they got theirs is like a reverse when they speak theirs. So if they are
Mhm.
saying you and I, is literally I and is no I'm forgetting how they say it now. It's like he come look for you. No,
Wow.
I
Instead
I
of
I come look for
I'm
you.
coming to
I
you.
come look for you. It means he came to look for you, or she came to look for
Wow.
you. So if they meet
Wow.
them for the first time and he's speaking that, you be like, who's this? What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you, man? Like, that's what this is the message. So sometimes it's good to send one of them to deliver a message because it's very coded, and it's funny when the person does not
Wow.
understand the message because it's like they reverse everything. It's the opposite of
Wow. Well,
everything.
you made me remember
Yeah.
now, even in Haiti itself, because I'm from the capital, so I would
Mm-hmm.
know the Creole in the capital. So in the north of Haiti, it's completely different. I don't understand. Like, I'm being fully honest. I
Yeah,
don't
that's
understand.
fine. We
And
can't
my
get it all.
and my dad is from north, but he used to speak like that because they also have a different accent, but he migrated to the capital very at the young age, actually.
Yeah.
My mom was for university, my dad was much more in the young age, but the parents migrated there for them to go to university in the long run. So he changed his accent, so he did the adaptation as well. So like that's what I'm saying, every time you migrated or immigrated, like you
Mm-hmm.
will have to do a little bit of an adaptation. It's just like in some cases the percentage is just way too much. So
Yeah.
my dad also had to do it because in the north it's a completely different, completely different. I don't even know if there's a similar similarity with the North Creole. Like it's with the West one and the
Yeah.
South. It's a bit similar, the South to the West, but they just have different expressions because you can also know where the person is from based on their expressions they use. So it's just a
Mm-hmm.
complexity of languages. So that's why when people are like, "Oh, everybody speak that one same language," and I'm like, "No,
No.
it's
No.
like impossible to do that." So
Mm-hmm.
you just need to ask questions, just like conversate with the person is just, instead of just assuming
Yeah.
things. And because even in French itself, when you go to France, there's so many different accent and French
Oh
expressions.
yeah.
Like we know
It's
the
tied
one from
to
Paris,
regions, tied
but
to
yeah, exactly.
boroughs and all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's we'll spend enough time on languages and accents. Although there was still another language question I would have loved to ask, but I'll save that for next time. Um, so you have a lot of creative energy that you give to the world, and it covers various I'll say various sectors, and it includes social activism. You also do great stuff that touches on natural hair, which I am trying to get into, so I can. I want to I want to be able to do my daughter's hair, and
Nice.
you also like posting about food and making me hungry unnecessarily, which is something I have to throw at you as a dig, if you know. But no, it's a good dig though. But but you also have a podcast which is called the Immigrant Dilemma, right?
Yeah.
And how did you come about that name? And going from that, we'll dive into the other creative stuff that you do. How do you get inspired to pick a project and um, dive into? How do you find that creative juice to keep going?
Yeah, oh my god, that's a very good question. Let's start with the podcast. The way I came up with this is I feel like it's just part of myself. It's part of me. And what I meant by that is, when you're just always doing things and it's always to the same angle, and then you ended up doing something that finally just compile everything that you were doing with that same angle. For example, when I was, because I studied sociology and went back in university, all my papers were always with the same team. It was
Mm.
always about immigration, always about racism, feminism, and sexism. Like I always tend to stay within these interests. And so so when I started the podcast, it's like it's basically everything that I was doing before. I just put it official type of thing. And also in my Instagram page, I met a lot of people that I didn't know. I connected with people like I didn't know them, and we connected very in an amazing way online, just like we connected for the podcast right now. And I asked my audience, I wanted to do a podcast in what type of topic I should be talking about. So I remember like putting I think I put it some examples, and then people were like sending me messages and their answers. And one person were like, I think you would be really great with what you have been showing to us in your page. It just compiles everything into talking about immigrant dilemma, because I was already talking about it. And
Mm.
it's just like I just made it official with the podcast. And I also did a show. No, I didn't did a show myself. I was part of a show that was speaking about immigrants.
Yeah.
And I shared my story in that show. It's a Montreal show here. And so, like I said, I was already talking about immigration. And then I started that right after the show, because I was like, I did this. What can I do after to really make an impact? And that's how I started doing the podcast. And I'm also in digital marketing, so it's a great way for me to start doing this
Mm.
uh, um, creative stuff as a way for me to learn in my professional career as well, because I'm learning about podcasts, I'm learning about optimization. Like that's what I do, website optimization and stuff like that. So I'm really, really interested in anything digital. And if I can combine social, what I'm interested to, with digital, I'm always going to go for it. So
Nice.
so really, to just answer that very quickly, that's how I got into the doing the podcast about immigrant dilemmas. And my angle is very much on identity as a dilemma, because we're developing a different identity with different backgrounds, and also the environment has an impact on us. So it's what I lived myself, and I wanted to just find a way to share what I learned with other people, and also hear other people's stories. So my creativity always come with passion first, and also what I go through in life that I just want to share with others.
Nice. Creativity with passion. Love that.
So that would be the part for the podcast. And to answer the second part of your question, so about hair, it's the same thing as well. I went through it myself, the transition. I used to have the perm, straight hair, long, straight, since I was 7 years old. So my mom, 7 to 10 years, I don't remember, like 10 years old I was, yeah, 10. So my mom decided to put the perm for me, so the relaxer.
Yes.
It's the chemicals, the chemically cream to make your hair straight.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just the way it was at the time. Everybody was doing it, so my mom just did it. And also, we didn't have a lot of tools to do our hair at the time, and also we didn't know what to do. So it was very difficult because I had a lot of hair. And my mom too, she had a lot of hair, and she went through the struggle of like it hurts, so she
Yeah.
didn't want me to she did it really with the positive intention. Like, her intention wasn't bad, because she was like, I don't want my daughter to go through the same struggle that I was going through when I was young, because like she was yelling, it used to hurt her, like the whole neighborhood used to hear.
Doing the you mean like the ironing of the hair kind of
Well, there
thing?
was
Does that
ironing after that came after
yeah. I'm
my mom was.
I'm just
Yeah.
recalling the some of the processes
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
to
That came
fix the
after,
hair.
when she
Yeah.
got like almost 16 years old. So throughout her whole childhood, it was like on with normal way, like you wash your hair with soap type
Mm-hmm.
of thing. So
It's traumatic. It is
yeah,
traumatic when I
it
look
was very
back and I
dramatic.
think
Yeah.
back about I know for boys, like I used to have a large afro as a baby, and going
Mhm.
into my toddler years, and there was a fight to not have it cut, but there was an argument that I'm a boy, I shouldn't have that
Shouldn't
plenty
have
of hair,
hair. Yeah. For boys,
and
it's different. Yeah.
but for and it was like we didn't at one point in time we didn't really have opinions for when it came to
Mhm.
picking styles, and I think I was 9 or 10 when I started picking what hairstyle I wanted. And when I walked into the barber shop and said, I want this hairstyle, and there was like always a shock every time I did that because there was like, what this small Pekin? Look, this small Pekin. Yeah, who you think you be?
And then they will see that, oh, there's an adult there with me, and then they'll okay, then they'll give me the hairstyle. Like, oh, well, usually all the kids just come there and sit down. The Baba does whatever. But it used to look, we used to picture it like, but due to the patriarchal system that we were in, as boys, we all said this is difficult because
Mhm.
you cut our hair, you shave our hair, the hairstyle is difficult. But nobody ever pictured that how difficult it was for the girls, where you won't see the girls for a couple of hours, and it was traumatic on them, the
Mm.
process that they had to go through. But
Yeah.
instead, it became something that we made fun of, like, oh, Christmas time, girls had to go do their hair on this street, where it's like, oh, they'll be there for hours. Look at that. I can never be the boyfriend to
Hours,
that girl.
days, like,
Days, yeah, and
seriously,
days,
go
yeah.
away from
Later on,
me.
we found out about days, and we'll be making. But it was for making fun. That's all
Yeah.
we because we're like, oh, look at them, go cut your hair like us, save time and all that kind of thing. But it was just for making fun of.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's the only way we could. We looked at it at, but we never
Mhm.
looked at it that this stuff is actually traumatic because we'll see some of the girls like hitting their hair like, I can't,
Yeah,
it's
it
itchy.
hurts, like
I want to scratch my hair, but I can't touch it. And it's like, oh, and I'm like, why are they going through all this stress? Why is it so much work? Why is it?
and you don't feel free. It's like if you need to go to
Yeah,
the pool, it's like you can't
you
because you need to
can't.
do your hair. You have
Yeah.
to wait 1 week. You cannot touch. And when you were doing the iron at the time, like the old iron with the I don't know how to say this in English, like the fire. It
Oh,
was
the
like
charcoal.
yeah, the charcoals. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like you had to put the brush in the charcoal. I did that when I was the kid. When I was
Oh
before
wow.
putting the perm, I did that. It was still popular at
Yeah.
my time, but it was more on my mom's. So I did that. It's like you cannot drink cold water, you cannot
Oh
walk
wow.
barefoot. It's like you cannot. It was just like such a. It was not a way of slavery for us. It was
I agree
like
because
at a
I
time.
wasn't even aware about the drinking of cold water part.
Oh yeah, you cannot do
Uh,
anything cold. It's like if it's raining outside, you can't go out. You have
yeah,
to
yeah.
stay in.
So yeah, I know
It's
about.
like you're in a prison. It's just
It is a
you know,
prison. It
yeah.
is, and so yeah. That's one of the things that I'm most definitely said. Yeah, but by the time I started getting aware of all this, today I'm no longer mad at women who wear wigs. I'm no longer mad at all. I'm like, nah, all that stuff came from the wrong messaging from me
Mhm.
being like, yeah, a woman must do this. A woman must, if you're not a real woman, must. I'm like, hell, am I the one? It's not my head. It's not my head that the hair is on. So why am I the one defining what a real woman must go by? No, it's not my. Because if I can't put that on my hair, when I tried to do dreadlocks once, and the guy was like, "Oh, you want to wash your hair for a couple of weeks or was it months?" I said, "What? You gonna put raw?" He said he's gonna put raw egg in my hair. Because I had an this was 2002. I had an afro. Well, I'm bald now. It's different. But 2002, I had an afro, and he said he was going to put raw egg. I said raw egg in my hair, and I want to wash it immediately. He said no. I said hell no. Why? Like, how will I be walking around? It won't smell. Hell no. I can't do that. No. But I'm the one that's going to be yelling at other people that this is how you must live your life. You must, no, 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 no.
Mhm.
Girl,
Yeah.
do whatever make you comfy, please. Do
Yeah,
it.
so I guess now with the natural hair movement,
Mm-hmm.
that's how people are saying things and like thinking about that. Like it's slowly changing. Obviously, there are some little issues within the natural hair community
Yeah.
because we went from always having it straight to always having defined
Mm-hmm.
curls. So it's like they're still telling us what to do. So it's like so it's like we're getting there. We're getting there. Slowly, slowly we're getting there. And I think it's a personality thing as well. There's just some people they're like they're like embracing their differences.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of personalities because some people just can't deal with the social the social reaction you're gonna have because it could be harsh.
Mm.
So yeah, that's how I started my other page of natural hair. I just wanted to share that, and because I was part of the first person to do it within my environment myself.
Oh wow.
And so it was also a way of for me to search for answers type of thing because I was like, I don't know what to say. I was never aware of these issues. Like I was just doing it because my mom was telling me to do it, and then
Yeah.
everybody was telling my mom to do it. Like so
So
so it's
how did
like
you
yeah.
inspire yourself to be was there any inspiration that made you? take
Totally,
that
yeah.
step, that to be that first
Yeah,
person?
totally. Because in USA, it started already in USA, natural hair movement.
Mm-hmm.
And I started in Montreal like a little bit 1 year before it picked up really internationally. But
Wow.
there were a lot YouTubers already. Like I don't know what I would do without them. They taught me a lot. I'm always on YouTube checking natural hair videos. That's how I learned how to do my hair because nobody in my environment could help me because my mom would be the last person to help.
Yeah.
And now she's fully natural as well. So it's like I kind of help her as well to stop putting the perm and everything. So I help and influence other people in my environment. But I was part of the first people really to do it in my circle of friends and family members because they just didn't know what to do. I knew some people, and also the perspective of it. Like for us, people without hair or women without hair and perm
Yeah.
were nuns because I went to nun
Yeah.
high school
Uh,
back in Haiti. So it's like you're off the market if you don't have that straight, very sexy long hair. It's like you're not looking for her husband, like type
is
of
it
thing.
common for
Or
widows to also have like low cut hair? Are you familiar with
yeah,
that?
it's like when yeah, exactly. Low cut it was like for the old women, elder women, or like once you get to your 50s, you're allowed to cut your hair. But
Yeah,
if
my
you're
mom did
young,
that
so yeah,
after
it's like a
60s. She
mid
started cutting her hair.
yeah, it's like a mid age crisis. I don't know what it is, how society sees it, but when you were 50, you were allowed to cut your hair. But at my age, you can't do that. You're not yet married. So
Yeah.
like you're not gonna find a man. So it was
Yeah, I know of a
yeah,
bunch of tribes. It's
yeah.
one of the requirements. As soon as you lose your husband, doesn't matter what age the woman
Mhm.
is, it's a requirement for the woman to cut her hair.
Okay,
And
okay.
it's one thing. So yeah, so one of the most popular musicians in Nigeria, Onyeka Onwenu, she's always had low cut for a
Yeah.
long time, and
Okay.
I think that kind of was conflicted for some when
Mhm.
I got to find out about women cutting their hair, like being made to cut their. It's not like you have the. It's not like you choose to. You're forced. Like they forcefully
Course,
cut your
yeah.
hair. They forcefully cut your hair. Yeah,
Wow. That's
as part of the
crazy.
mourning process. It's supposed there's some crazy stuff. If you look into
I'll check it out.
what
Yeah.
happens to women when their husbands that lose their husband, it's not a colorful thing to look into. Yeah.
Wow.
Um.
I'll check into it. It's so
eh,
funny, the meaning of hair. It's like, so I wasn't aware of all this. I thought it was just hair, and I decided to cut mine
mhm.
because I decided to do the big chop back in 2014. And I had to cut it again because it was growing in a weird way. And then people were like, what are you going to do if it gets long? Like, you don't know how to manage it. Like, they were always scared, like managing your hair, managing. And I was like, do you mean treating my hair? Like, I don't understand why you're
That
saying
is
that.
the
Yeah.
way to say it. Treating your
And
hair. Yeah.
yeah, but it was so funny that like, so I cut it again because of all the pressure.
Wow,
Until I,
all this hair that you
yeah,
got, you've cut it how many times now?
I think I did it like a good 3 times. Yeah.
Wow, okay,
Cut it like
you
very
got a lot
short.
of hair.
Thanks to Rihanna for the short hair because I was like, it's like Rihanna. So that's why I guess people accepted the short hair. But at the time, Rihanna just had her hair cut as well. So people were like, okay, it's accepted. And also, I feel like there's that idea of like, if someone else is doing it, someone else with a more, um, how can I say
A
that?
bigger
People,
following.
yeah, bigger following. It's like
Yeah,
they can approve type of thing. They approve the style, and then people are like, okay, you can follow,
yeah.
but you're nobody to just start doing whatever you want. It was very interesting what I
You,
learned with that.
you just reminded me of there are certain haircuts back when I used to go to barber shops in Nigeria that in various parts of Nigeria that were named after celebrities. I don't believe that those haircuts, those were the real names of the haircuts, but in those cities, I think that those were the names that they went by. So
Mhm.
I just remembered a few of them right now. Anita Baker,
Okay.
MC Hammer, Bobby Brown.
Wow. I guess I can figure what's the MC Hammer one.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. From the names, you can figure them out. Which one? What else? I know I did Bobby Brown. My
Really?
brother did Anita Baker because he was crazy about Anita Baker. Tony Braxton. Tony Braxton was the one
Yeah.
that a lot of women got away with, and when she was that period where she was hot, you be like,
Mm.
oh, I did Tony Braxton, and you do the pattern on in the middle of your hair.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Any man sees that, they won't ask you any question. They'll be like, "Oh, Tony Braxton, right there. I love Tony Braxton. That's I love, I love, I love." They won't ask you any question. They'll just be like,
That's crazy. Well, I
"Yeah."
had the Rihanna haircut.
That's why I forgot about that.
Yeah, that's
ah,
really how it is.
yeah.
Crazy.
So we have to start wrapping up. This is a beautiful episode. I would have loved to continue, but we out of time. But yeah. So let me see. Two questions. Let me go two questions. Well, let me three questions. So quick answer to this one. Do you have any plans to open a restaurant in the future? Because you do a whole lot of food posting and all that, making us salivate and be swallowing our saliva 24/7.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for following all my food stories and everything. And like I'm really happy you like what I cook. I I don't know for the restaurant. Honestly, I'll let that for the future to decide. I'm not a chef. It's really a passion that I discovered I had during the pandemic. That's really coming from the pandemic.
Oh
And
wow. Okay.
it started with being natural on the hair side, and then I decided to continue being natural and started eating more healthier.
Okay.
So that's how I started. And I also have IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. So
Oh.
whatever I was eating, I was getting bloated all the time, and I tried so many things. I tried different recipes from like IBS recipes and stuff, and they were still using things that I couldn't. So I was like, okay, I need to personalize this and start cooking what I can eat. So that's how I really started that. And then in the pandemic, I started sharing it
Yeah.
on my Instagram. So and then I just developed that passion, and I tried to keep it like a little bit Caribbean. Like I use avocados, plantains, like
Mm-hmm.
Caribbean and Latin America, I would say they also use avocados and like plantains.
Yeah. Plantains is
um
huge for us too.
I plantains too are huge in Africa as well. So I'm trying to like check different recipes and just kind of switch it to what I can eat with the ingredients that I can. I don't do meat. I don't do a lot of meat, but
Okay.
I don't consider myself like fully vegan. I do can eat chicken sometimes and like pepperoni pizza and stuff like that, but it would be very much less than a normal person. Like I can eat 3 times a year meat. Like, my dad gave me a chicken last year, and it's still in my freezer.
Oh
So that's
wow.
how much I don't eat meat. But so, so it really helped me on the really much like health side because of the IBS that I was having, and I used pills and everything. They were not working until I realized it was really coming from my diet. So
Mm.
now I'm much better, like less bloated and stuff. So I just wanted to share my recipes online or what I do on my Instagram pages. So hopefully future hears you, and let's manifest that I will eventually open a restaurant in the long run. But with the pandemic right now, restaurants are all closed. So
But we're
so
getting close to the end of
to
the
be
tunnel,
seen.
so we'll see.
Yeah. We'll see, we'll see.
That's beautiful. So, music. I don't have enough time to go deep into music, but do you have any favorite Haitian artist? Are your favorite artist non-Haitian that you would like to drop? Give us a name or
Oh,
two.
names. I listen
Good.
to a bit of everything. Like I if I'm gonna like say about the Haitian music, it's very much involving right now because we have the compas, which is I would say it's a slow merengue if you want to compare it to
Oh,
something that you
slow
would
merengue.
know.
Okay.
And now it's really developing, it's involving. There's also they do rock, a mix of rock now with Haitian music. They also do like very not antique but like very roots music, a little bit more mixed with African roots because we're also mixed with Africans, so it's a huge part of our culture. So then you will be having racine. It's called racine, so it would be roots in English.
Okay.
So it's like really with the drums and everything. So now it's really involving, and they're mixing that with pop, with house, and with R&B. So the music is really involving, and I would say I listen to reggaeton as well and Afro house.
Yeah. Well, so give us
Artist, you want
drop
artist?
names,
Okay, I
drop
need to
names.
check my
We need
Spotify.
we need to get you trapped so that the fans of the other ones will come after you and be like, "What, you didn't name our person?"
I know that's what I was trying to avoid.
Nah, I want to get you in trouble, good trouble. But
Well,
yeah,
there's my friend. He's doing a mix of compa and sometimes bachata, and
nice.
his name would be TMD. And
TMD, as in
yeah,
TMD.
yes,
Okay,
really TIEMDI. And then you have Naika music right now. She's really popping, and she does a little bit of like pop mixed with African beats and Haitian beats. She
nice.
mixes a lot of stuff. And you have, give me one second, there's another one. There is Michael Brown. He's also
That sounds
mixed.
familiar. I may have heard his
Yeah, I
music.
probably know him. He's pretty known. And then there's my favorite, Gardi Giraud. He's like one of my favorite. And reggaeton, I love Nicky
Yeah, I'm
Jam.
not gonna be able to pronounce that. Gabzi. Yeah.
It's
Just
Gardy.
send me all
I'll
the
send you the link.
artists
Yeah, I'll send
afterwards.
you the link. And
Okay.
on the reggaeton side, I just love Nicky Jam, and like I'm obsessed with him. And and Afro House, I love my favorite. That's the last one.
Yeah.
I love. Wait, give me one second. Like I need to check my Spotify. We're so dependent of Spotify right now for music
That's fine. If you
because I
have
want
it,
to
it's
pronounce the
okay.
name. I want to pronounce it well. Because now Afrobeat is like everybody's listening to it. It's like really popping, and they're doing amazing job. Like we love it. There's Malik Berry that I
Oh,
like,
Malik Berry. Yeah.
and the other one, like my all-time favorite. Where is he?
Whiskey.
Yes, I like him. That's popular, Like,
What's his
yeah.
name? Burna Boy.
Burna Boy is the same. I like him. He's the best. Like he's
Davido.
popular.
I know
Davido, yeah,
those are
these are
the
pop.
holy trinity for many people right
Yeah,
now.
they're like the best of the best, But this one I like it. It's like my personal favorite, not
Yeah.
just because he's known.
What's his name?
Um,
Naira
I'm
Mali.
gonna. No, it's not it. I'll find it. I'll find it. Wait a second. I have it in my playlists. I know you don't have much time. God, why I forgot this. I'm really not good with names.
That's fine. That's fine. You-
Oh, Fireboy. I thought. Wait, I think it's Fireboy. Wait,
oh,
Fireboy.
Fireboy.
Fireboy
Yeah,
DML. Yeah,
my
that's it.
cousin is crazy about him.
Oh, I love him so much. Like I love his songs, and especially like the before last album. That was the best.
All right. Okay. So, final question: what would you like to leave the audience with? Could be a quote, could be a line from your favorite book or song, or just something you'd like to leave the audience with to wrap it up.
Yeah, sure. I'll just do it very quickly. It's like I think people shouldn't be afraid of just following their passion and trust the process because I think I'm a true believer that you just need to start because if you don't start, you will just be stuck somewhere and never do whatever you want to do, and then it's just going to impact on your happiness. And how I would conclude this, the fact that I'm also doing a lot, it's also that I'm searching for that happiness. So sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not. So I want to tell everybody who's listening to that podcast, it's like make sure you know your purpose because that's the mistake that I've done before. I didn't know my purpose. So I was just doing things just to find happiness. And then as soon as I finished doing the project, like I'm back to not being happy. So like don't be dependent on your project. Like make sure you know your purpose and it's like a little bit separate than your happiness. Like it's good if it makes you happy, but it shouldn't be dependent of it. So and also like think long run instead of short term, because we live in a capitalist society where we're always like, I want to do something just to get short term happiness, and then after you just keep growing other things, and then you're never happy. So I would just I would just tell everybody to just make sure you're doing things for the right reasons and know your purpose.
All righty. Thank you for those beautiful words of inspiration. And where can people find you and listen to your awesome podcast?
Yeah, they can find me on Instagram for the podcast immigrant d underscore podcast. And so basically all my podcast is in there. They will find the link in the bio to listen to the podcast. If they type on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, I'm everywhere. So they would find just the podcast's name, Immigrant Dilemma. They should find it. So it should be easy. They can even type on Google. They will find it on my website and everything. Yeah.
Awesome. And I'll add that to the show notes and make sure people go check it out. All right. Merci beaucoup. Nakuna is that's a new thank you that I just learned from one of the languages in Nigeria.
Awesome.
And yeah, so I appreciate you and much love to you. And thanks for coming on the podcast. Hope to do something with you down the line again. And keep the love coming. And to everyone listening, thank you for your support. We appreciate you all. And hey, thank you for the privilege of your company.
Thank you so much for inviting me. And yeah, we should definitely do something in the long run. So we'll stay in touch.
Most definitely. Thanks for listening to White Label American. If you enjoyed the show, we'll appreciate if you rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast from. If you have any questions, comments, or have someone who will be a good guest on the show, or you want to be on the show, send us a message at whitelabelamerican@gmail.com. And make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at White Label American. Thank you for your support.